Fundamentally, Wales is in a housing emergency. House prices and rents go up in Wales more than anywhere else in the UK, so that's having a massive impact on people's ability to be able to afford somewhere to call home. We've seen the numbers of people living in temporary housing and accommodation absolutely rocket, up to nearly 7,000, including over 1,500 children. So yeah, just in the last 12 months, the situation in Wales regards people's housing has changed dramatically.
The struggle of insecure housing in Swansea is real. With high rental costs and low income, the hope of securing a mortgage for many is a distant dream. But 10 years ago, a group of friends were determined to change that by setting up a housing cooperative.
I'm Joe Stratford. I came to Swansea to do my degree a long time ago, and I found a group of people I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. So I settled in Swansea, helped form the housing cooperative. I work in the local hospital in the pathology department.
I'm Hannah, and I've lived in the co-op since before there was a co-op. I lived in a shared house with a few people here, and then I was part of setting up the whole thing, I suppose. And yeah, and I've lived here ever since.
We started out just sort of having meetings about it, didn't we? And like the meetings were literally just maybe once a week we'd all get together. We all put £1 in a box to pay for like stamps and postage to send off letters and mortgage applications and things. And it just sort of evolved from there and got bigger and bigger. On the day everything was like finalised, we picked up the keys from the estate agents, wasn't it? And they handed us like this football-sized bunch of keys with like hundreds of keys on. And we were like, which one's the front door? And they just said, we don't know. But once we did get in, we all just ran around the house like mad, going, oh, look at all the rooms we own. And
yeah, although we don't own it as individuals, like that sense of like, oh, this is actually ours
and
was really strong.
We could do whatever we want with this place, you know? Because we were so used to renting from landlords who have all these rules about pets and electricity use and
blue
posters on walls, and what colour you can paint it.
Yeah.
And suddenly we had this huge house that we could just do anything in.
Yeah.
It was great.
It was great. A lot of people ask us how the financial side of things works. As it stands, the cooperative is a business and the business owns the property. So none of us own the property. For the duration of your tenancy here, you are a director of the business. So you are one of the voices running the business. The thing that's beautiful about tenant managed housing, which makes all the difference between that and private housing, is you're living in the house and therefore you want to make good decisions for your tenants because they're you.
Do you want all of this, Greta?
I think so. There's a good few others. I'd go for it, yeah. Whoa. Okay. Oh.
After living in a horrible flat that was full of mould, with the landlord trying to steal our deposits and things like that, we thought, well, this seems like a housing model where we don't have to deal with landlords. We become the landlords, be moving in with the community so we won't be lonely. And it just seemed like a no-brainer, really. It's like it's either stay in horrible little flats or move into a big, lovely house with your friends where you have control over your life. So that's the reason decided to move in.
This is Joe's gorgeous sourdough bread. Sometimes it has more holes than today, but it's always really great. Christine makes it as well, and I make it occasionally, but I'm lazy, so it's usually Joe and Christine alternating. So every day we have fresh sourdough. It's amazing. I know I was concerned when I applied. I thought, well, a few people in the co-op know me, and they know I'm like a sociable person. I'm quite very gregarious, and I've worked in co-ops, so I knew they would know that background. I think what I had a slight worry about, which came to nothing, was my age. And it never even came up. It was never referred to in any kind of way, which in a kind of ageist society, that meant an enormous amount to me.
And also you have a lot of energy as well. I feel like you have a lot more energy than a lot of the younger people anyway, so you can definitely keep up with us.
Yeah, I think I can, so far.
Especially like party spirit-wise.
Yeah, I do like a party, it's true.
I was a bit unsure about living in such a busy house, but I really got on with everybody that I spoke to on the day, and I thought I would sort of register my interest, and then they accepted me, and I've been here for 2.5 years.
When I initially sent my first message to kind of introduce myself and inquire about living in the cooperative, I was still living in my van. And the kind of first point of the process was just going around and meeting a few people, meeting whoever was around. So I came around for food, and that was good. After living by myself for 2 years, remotely in a van, being surrounded by kind of multiple people all eating food together, it was quite a sight to see. Having food together is a big part of what we do here, and it's kind of integral to our cooperative, that time together each day.
Some people have this idea in their heads about what a cooperative is, and they hear like Wales and they hear cooperative and they think we live in an enchanted wood full of like magic and fairies. So we've had people get in touch going, oh, I'd love to be part of the co-op movement. Do you have room for my 3 kids, 4 dogs and yurt? And we're like, no, we don't. Or some people will get in touch and say, oh, I'd love to live off-grid. When can I move in? And we're like, no, we're very much on-grid. We're an urban co-op, and like we all panic when the Wi-Fi goes down.
So on the back gate, we've got new fixings. So the fixings for the letterbox hinge and the numbers were the old ones, which are a bit rusty. So I've got new ones just to replace them. So that all the holes are drilled. It's like a 2-minute job just to switch them over.
So as part of living in the co-op, there are sort of certain responsibilities people have, certain things that we expect from them. Generally speaking, because of the cooking rota that we have, so people cook 1 day a week for everybody else in the house, and we try and make that as flexible as possible, but it is a requirement of living here to take part in that. We also have a work weekend once a month, so people, contribute to jobs being done around the house, which can be wildly varying. Sometimes it's been like major building work, and that's once a month.
I might stuff it with like newspaper or something. I wonder if that would work. This is definitely going to need a proper sanding down.
We also have a co-op-wide meeting once a month. Those have changed in how frequent they are, depending what phase we've been at, really. They used to be weekly, they've been fortnightly, and now they're monthly.
There have been times where we've had to bring up in meetings about certain ways to do the compost or washing up or cleaning. But generally, we have such robust communication systems that any sort of downsides or clashes just get nullified really quickly.
There's not a lot of arguments about major things. In terms of these meetings, it's usually the main points of contention are things like colour of paint and things like that, so things that don't really matter that much.
We do things by consensus, so we have to have 100% agreement. And I think we discussed that when the co-op gets bigger, if we bought another house, for example, we would bring it a bit lower than 100% consensus. But for the time being, that's what we have.
When you live with a lot of people, you have to kind of understand a lot more about yourself. And that's an interesting dynamic because you require another level of consciousness about your movements and your actions and how they benefit and how they could negatively affect people as well.
Yeah, it's grass tree.
I love this tree so much, it's so wonky.
Yeah.
As the demand for more room grew, 2 years ago the cooperative decided to buy a second property in the same area. 13 people between the ages of 11 and 67 now make up the cooperative between the 2 houses in Mount Pleasant.
The vision of the cooperative had always been to own multiple buildings because we wanted to provide quite a few different living situations to people. So we don't just want to limit ourselves to just having 1 big shared house or 2 big shared houses. In the future, we'd want maybe like a 2 up, 2 down or some flats so that people who wanted to be part of the cooperative movement but didn't want to necessarily share a bathroom with 5 other people, they would still be able to do it.
There is a demand for housing cooperatives to develop, as renting privately can be difficult. Securing social housing is hard, and getting on the property ladder isn't an option for many.
Everyone we know who lives renting off a landlord has issues, damp issues. Swansea's a damp city. You have to be really on with keeping the damp down. And a lot of landlords won't do that because they just don't live in the properties themselves. So they're not going to care about like leaky taps or drafty windows. Whereas we do care because we live in the houses ourselves. So if we have issues, we just get them sorted because we want to live in a nice place. And that's kind of like the crux of what being in a co-op is that we care.
I'm a very independent person, and I kind of like my independence, and it was, at times it was hard for me to adjust and accept help, but I think we're all human and we all need help at different times in our life and in different levels. And for me, there's many benefits to living in a cooperative, and one of the biggest dynamics for me is having that supportive network around you. And being part of that supportive network. So we are essentially a big family.
So recently I was really ill and I was signed off work for 3 weeks, basically bedbound. And I had this whole network of people in both the houses who could help with like bringing me food, walking the dog, providing just emotional support as well. So for me, those are the main draws.
We were just actually like we'd had planned our first we're going to have a proper meeting where we're going to talk about setting up a co-op. And I found out I was pregnant just before. So suddenly there was like a sense of urgency. And we really need to sort this out. It still took kind of approximately 2 years from then. So yeah, my son was about 18 months old when we got the keys. When I look back, I do think, wow, there were some brave people to volunteer to live in a house with a newborn baby. Or, to continue living in the house with a baby. But actually, I think most people would say they have very positive memories of that experience, actually.
My great-granddaughter, she's 6. She loves coming here because everyone's, Maya, what you been up to? Or look at the kittens, or,
Nice.
Yeah, Lucy chats a lot to her, and Christine takes out her woolly mammoth, Harriet. So Maya gets to cuddle Harriet when she sleeps over.
Sometimes you just don't want to be around lots of people, and sometimes you don't. You feel like you haven't got quite enough space, and I do feel like that sometimes. But in general, I really appreciate people being around a lot. Well, I don't have any plans to move out anytime soon. Like, whether I'll be here in another 10 years' time, I don't know. I'd like to think I would be.
I think I'll always be here. Not necessarily in this house, but I will always be a part of the cooperative. In terms of the future for the co-op itself, I can see us owning a block of flats. That would be cool. So that everyone can have their own individual space but still be part of the movement. I
can't really foresee a point when I won't be living in the co-op. Maybe it will happen, maybe I'll want to go away and do something different for a bit, but as it stands, certainly for the rest of my son's sort of childhood, so we've got about another 7 years to go, I envisage living in the co-op.
I think if we had like a countryside element to the cooperative, that would be really cool. Maybe like a small holding, or like a manor house with some outbuildings, that we could run as maybe like a workers' co-op, and have animals and grow veg and stuff.
I really needed people who understood me and who were like me, and now I have it. I feel like I can relax a little bit, and I've literally traveled the world trying to find people like me. I went to America in 2020, went to Denmark in the end of 2020, during the pandemic, to try and find people like me, and they were literally down the road from me all along. So I definitely
darling,
missed it.
That's lovely. That's really sweet.
We're not going to stop at 2 houses. We're not going to stop at 3. We're not going to stop. We're just going to keep going. We started joking that maybe we'd one day have a street. I think that's totally doable. We'll just buy them one at a time.